A perfect stone circle frames a sunrise that no longer arrives on time. This is the profound enigma of the monumental stone rings positioned for celestial events long since shifted. These ancient observatories were built with breathtaking precision, their towering stones aligned to capture the solstice sun or the rising of a specific star. Yet if you visit them today, many of those alignments are broken. The celestial targets have drifted, leaving the stones pointing to empty sky. By the end of this journey, you will understand how these silent rings act as frozen clocks, allowing us to reconstruct a lost science of the stars and hear the whispers of ancient astronomers. We will uncover why a calendar carved in stone can become obsolete and what these shifted sites reveal about a wobbling Earth. What does it mean to build a monument to a sky that will not stay still? Mist hangs low over the stones, softening the edges of lichen-spattered monoliths that stand like silent giants in the Scottish moor. To walk among them is to feel a shift in scale, a humbling sense that you are moving through a geometry not meant for human rooms. This is the first clue that these are not random collections of rock. Across Brittany and beyond, the pattern repeats, deliberate and vast, circles and stretched ellipses painstakingly erected from the most local of materials. Those who study ancient sky knowledge see them as something profound, open-air temples engineered as calendars. They're grand axes and were positioned to capture a singular moment, the winter solstice sunrise cresting a distant hill, or the full moon skimming the top of a particular stone. At their heart, these was built on a foundation of perceived celestial permanence, the belief that the sun would always return to that same notch on the horizon. Yet this very permanence is the key to the puzzle we find today, because it introduces a silent, relentless force that operates on a timescale far beyond human memory, the slow dance of a wobbling Earth. The genius of those ancient architects was built upon a sky they believed was fixed and eternal. Yet the cosmos is in a state of constant, graceful motion on a timescale almost impossible for the human mind to comprehend. To understand why their perfect alignments now point to empty sky, we must step back and look at our planet from a cosmic perspective. Picture a child's spinning top, just as it begins to lose speed and starts to wobble in a slow, lazy circle before it finally falls. Our Earth behaves in a remarkably similar way. It spins on its axis every 24 hours, giving us day and night, but that axis itself is not perfectly steady. It very slowly traces a giant circle in space over a period of approximately 26,000 years. Astronomers call this grand cycle axial precession, the wobble of a world. This is not a change in Earth's orbit, but a change in its tilt's direction. Imagine the line running from the North Pole straight up into space. Over centuries, that imaginary line slowly sweeps across the backdrop of stars. This is why the star we call Polaris, our current North Star, has not always held that title. In the time of the ancient Egyptians, the star in the constellation Draco marked celestial north, and in roughly 13,000 years, the bright star Vega will take its turn. This slow, celestial drift has a direct and measurable impact on the ground. It means the entire tapestry of the night sky gradually shifts over. More crucially for our stone circles, it changes the precise point on the horizon where the sun rises and sets during the solstices and equinoxes. The sun's path slides almost imperceptibly year by year, but over centuries, the drift becomes dramatic. A sunrise that once flashed perfectly between two megaliths will, after 1,000 years, emerge noticeably to the left or the right. This is the silent engine of change. The builders calibrated their stone rings to a celestial clock, but they could not have known the clock itself was ever so slowly losing time. What we witness today, those misaligned stones, are not errors in ancient engineering. They are, in fact, the most compelling proof of their extreme antiquity. They are frozen moments in a cosmic cycle, capturing a sky that has long since moved on. The winter solstice sunrise is a spectacle of ancient engineering. For 17 minutes, a narrow beam of sunlight penetrates a perfectly aligned roof box, travels down a long, dark passage, and illuminates a chamber deep within the 5,000-year-old mound. This was not an accident of architecture, it was its entire purpose. For countless pre-literate societies, the solstices were the anchors of existence, the 2 days each year when the sun appeared to stand still before reversing its course. The winter solstice, in particular, marked the sun's symbolic death and rebirth, a turning point where the days began to grow longer again, promising the eventual return of life to the frozen land. Aligning a monument to this precise solar event transformed it into a colossal, immovable calendar. It provided a fixed date, a celestial signal that could organize the entire year's rhythm, telling people when to prepare the fields, when to hold the most sacred ceremonies, and when to gather for communal renewal. The precision required to capture this single moment, year after year, speaks to generations of patient observation. Builders had to identify the sun's absolute lowest point on the southeastern horizon, a task requiring meticulous horizon astronomy. Likely using wooden stakes or stone markers over many lifetimes to track the sun's creeping path until it finally turned back. This solar focus gives us a stable reference point, a true north in our investigation. When we stand at today, we can still witness that solstice light, a testament to their skill. But by using this solar anchor as our baseline, we can begin to measure the subtle, cumulative effects of precession on other, less precise alignments, revealing just how far the sky has wandered since those first stones were set in place. The heel stone at Stonehenge stands alone, a weathered sentinel outside the Great Circle. For a modern visitor standing within the monument on the summer solstice, the sunrise does not crown this stone as one might expect. It appears just to the left. This slight but undeniable misalignment is the key to everything. When the great Sarsen stones were raised around 2,500 years before the Common Era, that was perfect. The builders positioned the massive, and this outlying stone with such care that the first sliver of the solstice sun would have risen directly over the heel stone's tip, flooding the center of the circle with a beam of light. Today, that alignment is off by more than a full degree. To the naked eye, that seems a tiny amount, but on the celestial scale, it is a massive shift, equivalent to 2 sun widths. This is not a mistake in their astronomy, it is a signature. The astronomer Hawkins analyzed this shift, and his work shows us that the stones are still pointing exactly where they were aimed. It is the sky that has rotated. Think of the heel stone as the fixed hand on a clock face, and the sunrise as the moving hand. The clock was set perfectly at a moment we call 2500 BCE, and it has been ticking ever since, measuring a passage of time so vast it defies ordinary human experience. This single, tangible example at the world's most famous stone circle transforms an abstract wobble of the Earth into a visible, measurable fact. We are not looking at a ruin, we are looking at a precise scientific instrument, one that recorded a celestial event and has held that data in stone for allowing us to calculate the very age of its construction by how far the sky has turned. The sun's reliable path was only half the story written in the stones. If solar alignments marked the steady heartbeat of the year, the moon introduced a rhythm of breathtaking complexity. Its cycle is far less tidy than the sun's, governed by a subtle gravitational tug-of-war between Earth and our distant star. While the sun's rising points slide gently between two solstice limits, the moon's path swings wildly across the horizon over a much longer period. Every 18.6 years, it reaches what astronomers call a major lunar standstill, a moment when the moon rises and sets at its most extreme northerly and southerly points. Points it will not reach again for another generation. To track this required a different kind of memory, one that spanned not just a single lifetime, but many. This is where the mystery deepens into something almost unimaginable. Consider the sprawling stone rows at Carnac in Brittany, where thousands of menhirs stretch for miles across the landscape like a petrified army. Some researchers, like Alexander, proposed these alignments were not random. The fan-like arrangement of the rows, their precise angles and intervals, may have served as a giant sighting device. A priest or astronomer standing at one end could watch, over years, as the moon's rising point slowly traveled along this stone-built scale, marking its slow creep toward that ultimate northern or southern extreme. To calibrate such a system meant someone had to observe a full 18.6-year cycle, record its endpoints meticulously, and then pass that knowledge down so perfectly that the next generation could begin their watch exactly where the last one ended. This speaks to an oral or symbolic tradition of incredible stability and precision, a sacred science maintained across centuries. Incorporating the lunar standstill cycle transforms these monuments from simple annual calendars into long-term cosmic clocks. They were tracking time in layers, marking the quick turn of seasons with the sun, while simultaneously charting the slow, majestic sweep of a celestial body that measures its reign in decades. But the most fragile and ghostly of all these ancient alignments may not point to the sun or moon at all. They may be aimed at the stars. Consider the challenge this presented to an ancient astronomer. Identifying a specific star, like the brilliant Sirius or the clustered Pleiades, not just as a beautiful light, but as a precise horizon marker. They needed to know that on one exact night of the year, that star would rise or set in a perfect line with a single standing stone or a distant mountain peak. This was a calendar of incredible specificity, tying a terrestrial ceremony to a celestial event visible only in the deep darkness. Yet stellar alignments are the most susceptible to the slow wobble of our planet's axis, the precession we discussed earlier. Because stars are so incredibly distant, their own motion is negligible compared to the grand sweep of Earth's changing tilt. The entire dome of the night sky pivots around us over. A stone perfectly aligned to the bright star, which served as the North Star around 3,000 years before the Common Era, would today point to a patch of empty, unremarkable sky. This presents a fascinating possibility for modern researchers. When we survey a stone circle and find a clear, intentional, that now targets nothing obvious in the sun or moon cycle, we must ask a different question. Could this be a ghostly signature, a stellar clue frozen in stone? That empty line is not an error, it is an invitation to rewind the celestial clock. By calculating the precise effects of precession, we can work backwards, sliding through time until a brilliant star from antiquity once again slots into that stone-framed window. It is a form of archaeological astronomy, where the monument itself becomes a time machine, allowing us to reconstruct which stars held profound meaning for people who gazed at the heavens thousands of winters ago. This connection between stone and star was never meant to be a solitary observation. To understand the true purpose of these rings, we must step back and see them not as isolated structures, but as central actors within a vast, living stage. They were embedded within what scholars call a ritual landscape. A single stone circle was rarely the only feature. It was often the heart of a complex that included long, straight processional avenues, nearby hills that served as natural amphitheaters, and clusters of burial mounds that held the physical remains of the community's ancestors. The landscape itself was choreographed. Take the immense at Stonehenge, a huge, rectangular earthwork enclosure stretching for nearly 2 miles across the plain. While its exact use remains debated, one compelling theory suggests it acted as a ceremonial racetrack, or more likely, a sacred processional way. On the solstice, the low morning sun would have illuminated its entire length, creating a path of golden light. Participants walking this avenue would have been literally moving with the sun, their journey framed by the banks of the, culminating in a view of the great stone circle ahead. This transforms the astronomical event from a passive spectacle into an embodied experience. The community didn't just watch the alignment, they performed it, walking the path of the sun through a landscape they had shaped. This physical integration is crucial. By placing their monuments near the resting places of their forebears, they were doing something profound. They were anchoring the predictable, eternal cycles of the cosmos, the sun and moon, directly to the land of their ancestors. The stones became permanent mediators, a fixed point where the living community, the memory of those who came before, and the gods in the sky all converged. This merged astronomy with mythology and genealogy. The winter solstice sunrise was not just the sun being reborn, it was the ancestral blessing returning, the promise of continuity written in light across the burial mounds. This cosmological function, this role as a sacred meeting point, gave the monuments their enduring power. It explains why a community would invest generations in their construction. And it suggests something deeply moving about the subtle failure of the alignments over centuries. Even as the sunrise slowly drifted from its perfect stone-framed slot, the meaning of the place, its role as the heart of a ritual landscape connecting earth, sky, and memory, likely persisted. The stones held the story long after the specific celestial signal had faded. The doorway at the temple frames a beam of light that tells a story of both precision and profound change. On the solstice morning today, that sharp blade of sunlight does not land perfectly in the center of the inner chamber as it once did. It strikes the very edge of the limestone doorway, illuminating stone instead of sacred space. To a casual observer, this might look like a mistake, a slight miscalculation by the ancient builders. But to end this so-called failed alignment is not a failure at all. It is a silent, powerful testimony. It is a data point etched in light and stone. Because we understand the precise rate of Earth's axial precession, we can work backwards from this offset. We can calculate exactly how many centuries have passed since the moment the temple's axis was perfectly true. The math reveals that the central corridor was aligned with breathtaking accuracy around 5,200 years ago. This astronomical dating acts as an independent clock, one that corroborates and refines timelines suggested by other methods like carbon dating. That slight misalignment, therefore, becomes the most compelling proof possible. It proves, beyond any reasonable doubt, that these structures were engineered with celestial intent from their very foundation. They were built to capture a specific sky, a sky that has now drifted. This challenges our modern perspective in a fascinating way. We are tempted to see ancient monuments through the lens of our own static world, but these stones ask us to do the opposite. They ask us to see them not as broken clocks, but as precise instruments recording a moment in a cosmic cycle that far outlasts human civilization. Each beam of light that now falls a few inches off its mark is a direct message from the past, a whisper that says, "Look, the world has turned." Across the windswept plains of Salisbury, the great stones of Stonehenge can feel like a unique, isolated wonder. But this impulse to build in harmony with the heavens was a chorus, not a solo performance. A world away, on the Pacific island of, stands the Maui, a massive coral limestone shaped like a colossal stone doorway. Local tradition and modern analysis suggest its lintel and pillars are aligned to mark the solstices and equinoxes. Meanwhile, in the canyons of the American Southwest, ancestral people engineered a different kind of celestial marker. At a place like Butte in Canyon, they carefully positioned 3 large stone slabs. On the summer solstice, a dagger of sunlight slices perfectly through the center of a carved spiral petroglyph. On the winter solstice, 2 daggers of light bracket it. These are not crude notches. They are precise, repeatable solar calendars etched into the living rock. What is truly staggering is that the builders of, the erectors of and the architects of Stonehenge had no possible contact with one another. They were separated by vast oceans and, yet they each arrived at a profoundly similar solution, using monumental stone to capture and make permanent the moving light of the sun. This is the principle of independent discovery. It tells us that this was not a technology that spread from a single source, like the invention of the wheel. Instead, it emerged spontaneously in cultures across the globe. When human beings look up at an orderly, predictable sky, where the sun returns to the same point each year, where stars wheel in reliable patterns, a powerful cognitive impulse seems to take hold. The mind seeks to understand that order, to mark it, to build it into the landscape, as a way of claiming a place within the cosmic cycle. From the pyramids of Egypt aligned to the stars of Orion's belt, to the sun temples of the Maya, we see this same story written in different stones. This global perspective is crucial. It prevents us from viewing the stone circles of Europe as a peculiar, local anomaly of prehistory. Instead, we must see them as one brilliant expression of a universal human phenomenon. Our ancestors, wherever they settled under the sky, became astronomers. They watched, they learned, they measured, and they built to make sense of their world. The silent stones scattered across our planet are not isolated mysteries. They are pages from the same fundamental chapter in the story of human curiosity. The stones themselves are the final, permanent record of a science that was practiced with far simpler tools. We must strip away our modern assumptions of lenses and steel instruments. The toolbox of the ancient astronomer was built from wood, rope, water, and an intimate knowledge of the local horizon. Their most fundamental instrument was likely the gnomon, a simple vertical stick planted firmly in the ground. By marking the tip of its shadow at different times of day, they could find true north and south with remarkable accuracy. They could track the sun's changing path through the seasons, watching as the shadow's arc grew longer in winter and shorter in summer. The solstice was not a theoretical date, It was a physical event witnessed in the creeping movement of a shadow line across marked ground. But their genius extended beyond the ground at their feet. They used the landscape itself as a giant measuring device. A distant mountain peak, a distinct notch between two hills, or even a deliberately placed marker stone on a far ridge could serve as a foresight. By standing at a fixed point, perhaps a wooden post or a small stone, and lining up that distant feature with the rising sun on a specific morning, they created a precise, reproducible alignment. This horizon astronomy turned the entire world into a calibrated instrument. For observing the stars, they may have used still pools of water as natural mirrors, providing a stable, reflected view of the night sky to better judge a star's position as it skimmed the horizon. The very act of building the circles was an exercise in applied geometry. Using nothing more than a central peg and a length of rope, they could lay out a perfect circle by keeping the rope taut as they walked the circumference, marking points with stakes or small stones. Pulling the rope to create a triangle gave them the straight lines needed for solstice axes. This was not abstract math, it was a physical craft, a knowledge of tension and measurement passed from master to apprentice over generations. Their science was cumulative and experiential, built on a foundation of patient observation repeated over lifetimes. Understanding these methods does not diminish their achievement, it profoundly deepens our respect. It reveals a sophisticated, hands-on intelligence that used the materials at hand to solve a cosmic puzzle, transforming landscape and local stone into a permanent record of time. Yet the power of these rings extended far beyond the simple tracking of days. They forged the very rhythm of society itself. In a world without written almanacs, a reliable calendar was not a convenience. It was the thin line between abundance and hardship. Knowing the precise moment to sow seeds, to move herds to summer pastures, or to harvest before the first frost was knowledge that fed entire communities. The stone ring, by marking the solstices and equinoxes with unarguable celestial drama, became a communal clock of the highest authority. Its timekeeping was not based on human whim, but on the immutable motions of the heavens. When the sunrise flashed through that specific gap, it was a signal that transcended debate. It was time. This regular, celestial-driven rhythm did more than organize labor. It wove the social fabric. It created a shared schedule of sacred ceremonies, times when the entire community would gather at the monument. These gatherings were moments of profound unity, reinforcing shared identity, renewing social bonds, and redistributing resources. The authority to announce these dates, to interpret the subtle signs in the sky, likely rested with a specialized class, perhaps priestly astronomers or wise chieftains. These individuals held the keys to the cosmic calendar. Their ability to read the sky and orchestrate the rituals gave them immense spiritual and political power. The monument, therefore, was a dual instrument. It was a practical tool for agricultural survival and a powerful mechanism for governance, embedding what was seen as cosmic law directly into the structure of daily life. This function reveals a deep resilience in the system. Even as the slow creep of precession meant the sunrise or moonrise began to strike a stone's edge instead of its center, the societal machinery it established endured. The ceremonies, the gatherings, the agricultural cycles guided by the monument's signal had become tradition, a cultural heartbeat. The shift in the light might have been noted by the learned few, but the communal need for a fixed point in the year, for a time to come together under the ancestral stones, remained as vital as ever. The alignment's symbolic power to connect heaven and earth, to validate leadership, and to ensure communal continuity ultimately proved more durable than the perfect precision of its first celestial target. The allure of these celestial alignments is powerful, but it comes with a necessary caution. Interpreting the record is a field not without its own deep controversies. In the mid-20th century, a wave of enthusiasm led some researchers to see precise astronomical intent in nearly every standing stone and earthwork, sometimes connecting dots across a landscape with more imagination than evidence. It was an era of grand, sweeping theories that captured the public mind, but often strained under scholarly scrutiny. This overreach created a critical backlash, highlighting a fundamental challenge. How do we separate a genuine, intended alignment from a mere coincidence of geology? The answer lies in modern, rigorous statistical analysis. Scholars like John North have long advocated for a conservative, evidence-first approach. This means not just finding a line between two stones that points to a solstice sunrise, but asking, is this alignment statistically significant compared to all other possible lines from this site? Could it have occurred by random chance, given the number of stones and horizon features? This scientific skepticism is not meant to diminish the achievements of ancient builders, but to honor them. It forces us to move beyond romantic notions and apply the same disciplined scrutiny we would to any other historical claim. The debate between broader interpretation and strict verification is a healthy, necessary tension. It refines the field, ensuring that the alignments we confidently discuss, like those at or the major lunar standstill potential at sites like, are supported by strong, reproducible data. For us, navigating this scholarly landscape is crucial. It is the difference between well-supported theory and speculative fiction, a filter that ensures our exploration of these silent rings remains grounded in the solid earth of evidence, even as we reach for the stars. Geometry was never just about angles and measurements for these builders. It was a sacred language. The most profound word in that language was the circle itself. A shape with no beginning and no end, the circle is a universal symbol of eternity, mirroring the endless cycle of the seasons, the sun's daily journey, and the great wheel of life, passing, and renewal. When a community raised a ring of stones, they were not merely building a fence or an enclosure. They were etching this symbol of the infinite onto the landscape itself. But within that perfect shape, one point held ultimate power, the center. This was not an empty space. At many sites, the exact center of the circle held profound significance. It might have been the site of a ceremonial hearth, its ashes containing the residue of countless rituals. It could have been an altar stone, a place for offerings. Or, as archaeological evidence from some sites suggests, it might have served as a final resting place for a revered individual, physically anchoring the ancestors at the heart of the community's most sacred space. This central point transformed the entire monument. From this still, silent center, the surrounding stones acted as a frame. They did not look inward at the people, they looked outward, capturing slices of the horizon where the sun, moon, and stars performed their eternal dances. In doing so, they created a breathtaking cosmological map. Anyone standing at that central point was no longer just an observer. They were placed at the very heart of the universe. The stones framed the cosmos around them, making the individual, or the presiding priest, the literal pivot point between earth and sky. This architectural concept is what scholars refer to as an axis, a world axis or sacred center. It is an idea found in countless ancient cultures, a symbolic place that connects three realms: the underworld of the ancestors below, the earthly plane of the living, and the celestial dome of the gods above. The stone circle was a perfect manifestation of this. Its center was that connecting point, its stones were the pillars holding up the sky, and its alignments were the channels through which divine power flowed. To reduce these sites to mere astronomical calculators is to miss their deepest function. The alignments were the mechanics, but the symbolism was the soul. The circle and its center tell us that, for the people who built them, tracking time was inseparable from understanding their place in a living, layered cosmos. They built not just to watch the sky, but to stand at its very crossroads. Perched on a barren ridge in the coastal desert of Peru, 13 stone towers stand in a silent, precise line. This is, and it shatters our image of what an ancient observatory must look like. There is no circle here, no central point of gathering. Instead, these towers, built over 2 ago, form an artificial horizon along the crest of a hill. From 2 distinct viewing platforms on either side of the ridge, the entire year unfolds in a breathtakingly simple spectacle. On the winter solstice, the sun rises directly behind the leftmost tower. As the days lengthen, the sunrise point marches steadily along the ridge, peeking out from behind a different tower each time, until it reaches the rightmost tower at the summer solstice, before beginning its journey back again. This was not a monument for a single, dramatic moment, but a precise, functional calendar carved into the landscape. A priest or astronomer could stand at the western observation point at dawn, note which tower framed the rising sun, and announce the exact date within a few days' accuracy. It was a solar ruler, measuring the year in 13 clear increments. The genius lies in its use of the entire solar year as its reference, rather than focusing on the extreme solstice points alone. Because the sun's entire path between the solstices shifts very slowly due to precession, the relationship of the sun to each individual tower remains largely intact. While a monument targeting a single, razor-thin solstice alignment will fail over centuries, a system tracking the sun's full journey is far more resilient. Still works today, a testament to its builder's profound understanding of solar mechanics. This linear design expands our definition of monumental astronomy, showing us that ancient ingenuity was not confined to the form of the ring. From the stone circles of Europe to the solar rulers of the Americas, humanity was speaking the same celestial language, but writing it in completely different, locally brilliant scripts. The silent stones hold one more secret, one we can only unlock by listening. Step inside the stones on the border on a still day, clap your hands once, and a strange, fluttering echo seems to dance between the ancient monoliths. This is not a trick of the wind. Emerging research in the field of suggests the soundscape within these circles may have been as carefully curated as the to the sun. The placement of the stones, their height, density, and spacing can create distinct zones of reverberation, amplifying and shaping sound in specific ways. A chant or a steady drumbeat performed from a particular spot would not merely be heard, it would be felt, washing over participants in waves that seem to emanate from the earth itself. This transforms our understanding of the ritual experience. It was never just a visual spectacle, it was a full-body immersion. The dawning solstice light would slice through the mist, a blade of gold piercing the circle's heart. At that precise moment, the rhythmic pulse of drums or the rising harmonic chant of voices would swell, amplified by the stone orchestra encircling the community. The visual and the auditory would fuse into a single, overwhelming sensory event. This multisensory convergence was likely a deliberate technology, a method for shifting consciousness. The combination of rhythmic sound, the awe of celestial alignment, and the physical presence within the sacred geometry could induce profound states of awareness, breaking down the ordinary boundaries between self, community, and cosmos. The monument, therefore, was not a passive stage. It was an active instrument played by the community and the cosmos in concert. It engaged the whole human being, eyes lifted to the sky, ears filled with resonant sound, feet on the ancestral ground, to achieve what a solitary observer could not, a tangible, felt connection to the rhythms of the divine. A hero's chase or a giant's curse can hold more truth than we first perceive. Woven into the very names of these sites are stories that seem pure fantasy. The stones are said to be a king, and his knights turned to stone by a witch. The merry maidens in Cornwall are petrified dancers who broke the Sabbath. For centuries, these were dismissed as quaint folklore, imaginative explanations for things ancient and strange. But a deeper pattern emerges when we listen not to the plot, but to the directions embedded within the tales. A legend of a giant hurling stones from a nearby mountain to build a circle might encode the geographic source of the megaliths. A story about a hero who must stand in a specific spot to catch the sun's first ray could be preserving, in narrative form, the exact location of a solstice observation point. These myths functioned as powerful mnemonic devices, turning complex astronomical data and historical memory into memorable, transmissible stories. The rhythm of a ballad, the drama of a transformation, the clear characters and actions all made the information sticky. It could be passed from elder to child around a fire, surviving countless generations in a world without written records. The stone circle was the immutable hardware, the permanent monument. But the living software that gave it meaning, that told the community when to gather and why, was the oral tradition. The stories kept the knowledge alive, ensuring the silent stones continued to speak long after the original architects were gone. This creates a fascinating paradox when celestial drift began. As the slow wobble of our planet's axis caused the solstice sunrise to inch away from its perfect stone frame, the physical alignment faded. But the story tied to that event, the myth of the sun god entering the circle or the tale of the light that healed the sick, did not simply vanish. It persisted, carried forward by tradition. Over centuries, the narrative became detached from its original, precise astronomical anchor. The ritual might still be performed on the same day, the story still told, but the celestial spectacle that once validated it was now only a memory held in the tale itself. The myth's power shifted from being a direct report of an observable event to being a sacred story in its own right, a cultural treasure that explained the origin and sanctity of the place. This is why so many circles are associated with healing, fertility, or judgment. The stones absorbed the meaning of the rituals they hosted, and the stories evolved to reflect that enduring spiritual function, long after the specific solar or lunar trigger had drifted into obscurity. The legend, therefore, is not a corruption of the truth. It is often the fossilized imprint of a truth that the sky itself has left behind. The stories gave the stones their soul, but their physical presence on the landscape was a triumph of sheer human will. To understand the mind behind the alignment, we must first confront the monumental body that built it. Consider the central sarsen stones at Stonehenge, each weighing as much as 50 tons. There were no cranes, no steel cables, not even a simple wheel to aid their journey. Moving a single one of these giants from its quarry over 20 miles away was an endeavor that would challenge a modern engineering team. It began with a delicate operation at the source, using heat, water, and stone mauls to carefully fracture the bedrock along natural seams, then painstakingly pecking and grinding the surface into a smooth, shaped monolith. Once free, the real work commenced. The most likely method involved a symphony of simple machines. The stone would be levered onto a wooden sledge, which itself rested on a track of greased log rollers. Teams of hundreds, pulling on ropes woven from plant fibers, would inch the colossal load forward, a process of constant, coordinated effort where a single misstep could be catastrophic. To get the stone upright, they likely dug a deep, sloped pit at the chosen site. Using levers and ropes, they would tip the stone into this hole, guiding its descent until it stood vertical, then packing the pit with rubble and earth to secure it. For the even heavier lintels that capped the famous, they constructed massive earthen ramps, dragging the crosspiece up the slope, and then lowering it precisely into place with lever and rope systems. This was not brute force. It was applied physics of the highest order, a sophisticated understanding of weight, friction, and mechanical advantage. The scale of this logistics operation reveals a society of remarkable organization. It required a surplus of food to feed the workers, skilled overseers to direct the effort, and a communal belief in the project so powerful that generations would dedicate their labor to a goal they might never see completed. The engineering itself was a sacred rite, a physical bonding of the community to the land and to the cosmic purpose of the stones. The sheer effort invested in moving earth and stone on this scale tells us one thing with absolute clarity: the celestial events they were built to capture were not just observed. They were considered worthy of the greatest endeavor a society could possibly undertake. The massive stones stood not as separate ideas, but as a single, unified thought made solid. Our modern minds often try to divide the world into neat categories, labeling one box science and another religion. For the people who raised these rings, such a division would have been meaningless, a foreign concept that fractured a seamless reality. Their science was the patient, empirical observation of patterns, watching the sun's path shift day by day, tracking the moon's slow dance across the sky. Their religion was the profound understanding that these patterns were not random, but the visible expression of a divine order, the breath of gods or ancestors made manifest in light and shadow. The stone circle was the physical nexus where these two understandings met and became one. It was the laboratory where data was gathered from the heavens, and it was the cathedral where that data was celebrated as sacred truth. To stand at the center of such a ring was to participate in both acts simultaneously, to measure the cosmos and to worship it. The very act of predicting the solstice sunrise was a ritual of faith in the universe's consistency. And the communal ceremony that greeted that sunrise was a reaffirmation of the knowledge that made the prediction possible. This integrated worldview is the master key to appreciating these monuments. They were not built for mere timekeeping, though they excelled at it. They were built to enact a cosmology, to perform humanity's role within a living, intelligent universe. The precision of the alignment was what made the ritual powerful, and the power of the ritual was what gave meaning to the precision. One could not exist without the other. To ask if Stonehenge was an observatory or a temple is to ask if a heartbeat is a muscle contraction or the rhythm of life. It is both, inseparably, the physical mechanism and the vital force united in a single, pulsing purpose. The great stone circles were not the final word in this conversation between earth and sky. The deep human impulse to build in harmony with the cosmos echoes forward through, finding new expression in the very bones of later civilizations. Consider the silent perfection of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Its descending passages were not merely architectural whims, they were precise sight tubes aimed at specific, never-setting circumpolar stars. For the Egyptians, these stars were the immortal souls of their pharaohs, and by aligning the pyramid to them, they were building an eternal staircase for the king's spirit to ascend and join the undying heavens. This was not just astronomy, it was a monumental act of faith, engineering the afterlife itself into stone. Centuries later, and a world away, the architects of Europe's Gothic cathedrals performed a similar alignment, though for a different divine purpose. They often oriented the entire length of their immense structures, the nave, so that on the feast day of the church's patron saint, the rising sun would flood through the great eastern rose window, filling the long, shadowed interior with a blaze of colored light. In that moment, the building itself became a conduit for celestial glory, a physical manifestation of divine light entering the community. This thread of alignment weaves even into our own time. The modern passive solar home, with its south-facing windows and thermal mass walls, is a direct descendant of this ancient principle. It is architecture consciously designed to capture the sun's path, to harmonize human shelter with the rhythm of the seasons for comfort and sustainability. What we see is a continuous, unbroken tradition. The megalithic builders who calibrated their rings to the solstice sun were the pioneers of a fundamental architectural idea, that our structures can and should speak to the universe. They established the first principles of sacred geometry and environmental design, a legacy written not in books, but in the orientation of stone, the angle of a wall, and the timeless path of light across a sacred floor. The story of stone and sky finds its oldest known chapter not in the green hills of Europe, but beneath the burning sands of the Egyptian Sahara. At a place called Playa, a vast, dry basin that was once a seasonal lake, a group of cattle-herding people performed an act of genius that would remain hidden for around 6,000 years before the Common Era, over 1,000 years before the first stones of Stonehenge were even contemplated. These prehistoric Africans arranged a series of massive stones into a complex that aligns precisely with the summer solstice sunrise. They did not stop there. A nearby set of megaliths appears to map the bright stars of Orion's belt, and a circle of smaller stones likely tracked the more complex movements of the moon. This was not a simple marker. It was a sophisticated, integrated celestial calendar, constructed by a nomadic society that followed the rains across a then verdant landscape. The discovery of Playa in the late 20th century sent shockwaves through the archaeological world. For a long time, the narrative of monumental astronomy and complex society was centered firmly on Europe and the Near East. Playa shattered that model. It proved that the impulse to build in precise harmony with the cosmos emerged independently, and much earlier in Africa. It pushed the origins of this precise sky science back thousands of years further into the deep past, revealing a lineage of astronomical observation with roots in a very different environment. The site speaks to a period when the Sahara was not a desert, but a grassland dotted with lakes, a green artery supporting life and culture. These herders were not just surviving, they were observing, measuring, and memorializing the heavens with a clarity that rivals any later construction. Their work forces us to redraw the map of intellectual prehistory, placing a group of African pastoralists at the very forefront of humanity's quest to understand and codify the universe. The ground itself is the final shifting page of this ancient text. While the slow wobble of our planet's axis moves the celestial targets, another force of change operates on a more human scale, reshaping the very stage upon which the astronomical drama was meant to be viewed. The builders of these rings did not calibrate their stones to an abstract point in the sky. They aligned them to a specific moment, when the sun or moon would crest a particular notch in a distant hill, or skim the peak of a far-off mountain. That horizon line was as crucial to the alignment as the stones themselves. It was a fixed, terrestrial reference point in their cosmic calculation. Yet landscapes are not frozen in time. Over centuries and environmental transformation can render a perfect alignment invisible. Consider a monument built on a ridge overlooking a wide, grassy valley, its central axis aimed at a solitary, ancient oak tree on the opposite slope. The solstice sunrise, for generations, would fire a beam of light that touched the base of that tree before reaching the circle. But if that valley gradually fills with a dense, mature forest, the oak and the entire horizon feature vanish from view. The alignment is not astronomically broken, but it is practically erased, hidden behind a wall of greenery that did not exist when the stones were raised. This is the profound impact of environmental change. At the Great Henge of Avebury, originally constructed within a largely open, ritual landscape of low grasses and carefully maintained clearings, many of the long distance are now blocked by the village that grew within its banks and the trees that followed. We are not seeing the monument as its users did. We are seeing a degraded version of the original, designed experience. The intended view was a clear, cinematic panorama from the circle to the horizon, allowing the celestial body to make its grand entrance. Today, that view is often fragmented, obscured by the quiet, relentless work of nature and human settlement. This complicates the study of alignments immensely. When we survey a site and find a stone row that points to nothing remarkable, we must ask two questions. Has the sky shifted above, or has the earth changed below? Siltation can slowly fill a valley, raising the apparent horizon. Deforestation can reveal a mountain peak that was once hidden. Even seismic activity, over deep time, can tilt a basin or alter a skyline. The monuments were built in dialogue with a living, breathing world, a world that has continued to change long after the last stone was set in place. To truly hear their message, we must attempt to see not only the ancient sky, but the ancient earth as it was. A new dawn is breaking over the study of these ancient rings, powered not by the sun, but by silicon and light. Modern technology is granting us a kind of time travel, allowing us to digitally reconstruct the very skies the builders gazed upon. With sophisticated planetarium software and can input the exact coordinates of a stone circle, then command the digital cosmos to roll backwards. They can wind back the clock thousands of years, reversing the slow, relentless drift of precession with a few keystrokes. Suddenly, that has been sliding westward snaps back into its ancient position. This is the ultimate test. When you align a 3D model of the monument with this reconstructed sky, do the stones frame the rising point of Sirius? Does the central axis capture the solstice sun precisely as it crests the long-lost, pre-forest horizon? This digital remapping transforms speculation into verifiable hypothesis. We are no longer just guessing at alignments, we are testing them against a precise simulation of the past. It allows us to witness, on a computer screen, the celestial event that was the monuments, the sunrise or moonrise that once set a community in motion. This technological revival is like giving sight back to the stones. For centuries, they have stood in silence, their purpose obscured by the drifting sky and changing earth. Now, through this digital lens, they can speak their original intent with newfound clarity. The software acts as a universal translator, converting the fixed geometry of stone and landscape into a dynamic celestial event, validating the astronomical genius of the builders with hard mathematical data, but the technological toolkit does not stop at the stars. On the ground, laser scanners sweep across the weathered surfaces of megaliths, capturing every bump, groove, and subtle angle with sub-millimeter precision. This data builds into an immaculate 3D model, a digital twin of the monument. In this virtual space, researchers can perform measurements and analyses that would be impossible in the field. They can identify faint tool marks that reveal construction techniques, or discover subtle inclines and offsets in the stones that are invisible to the naked eye. A stone that appears upright may, in the model, reveal a deliberate lane of 1 or 2 degrees, a tilt that perfectly compensates for the local topography to maintain a true to a distant mountain. This fusion of celestial software and terrestrial scanning is closing the loop. We can now see the monument as a complete, engineered system, understanding both the target in the sky and the exquisite adjustments made on the ground to hit it. The stones are no longer silent puzzles. They are precise instruments whose calibration we are finally learning to read again. A single lifetime was never the unit of measurement for these stone rings. Their true purpose unfolded across centuries, a timescale that stretches our modern sense of history to its limit. These were not monuments built and then abandoned. They were institutions, long-term observatories maintained and reinterpreted by countless generations of. Imagine the first priest astronomer, trained by his predecessor, standing at the sacred center on the solstice dawn. He expects the sun to flash through the gap between stones 8 and 9, just as the old songs describe. But on this morning, the first sliver of light appears to kiss the very edge of stone 8, not its center. The discrepancy is tiny, perhaps the width of a finger held at arm's length. To him, it is a profound mystery. He records this subtle shift, perhaps by making a small mark on a tally stick or moving a pebble in a ceremonial pattern. He watches again the next year, and the next, and the shift continues, a slow, undeniable creep. This was the birth of a new kind of knowledge, the empirical observation of celestial drift itself, witnessed in real time across human generations. The monument was not failing, it was teaching. It was revealing that the cosmos itself was in motion on a scale grander than anyone had previously recorded. This long-term custodianship meant the sites were likely dynamic, physically evolving to accommodate new understanding. Archaeological evidence at some circles shows phases of construction, where stones were added, removed, or realigned over hundreds of years. A new monolith might be placed to mark the sun's new rising point, effectively updating the cosmic calendar. Or a gap between 2 existing stones might be subtly widened to capture the broader beam of a moon that no longer rose with pinpoint accuracy. The physical structure adapted, a stone-based software update for a shifting sky. But not all change was met with architectural adjustment. When the drift became too pronounced to easily correct, the response may have been narrative. The old stories explaining the perfect alignment would slowly transform. Perhaps the myth evolved, telling of a god who grew weary and now rested his light upon the stone's shoulder instead of its heart. Or maybe the ceremony itself migrated, with the community gathering a few paces to the left to witness the spectacle, anchoring the ritual to the new reality while the stones stood as a memorial to the old. This perspective changes everything. It frames these circles not as frozen snapshots of a single culture's belief, but as living participants in a dialogue that spanned. They were the stable platform upon which humanity conducted one of its longest-running experiments, patiently recording the conversation between a changing earth, a wandering sky, and the enduring human need to find meaning in the light. The same soil that holds the secrets of celestial alignment is now compacted under millions of footsteps. This is the modern paradox facing places like Stonehenge, where the desire to connect with the past physically threatens the very ground that preserves its clues. Each visitor who walks the perimeter, each bus that idles nearby, contributes to a slow, cumulative pressure that can erode delicate archaeological layers and subtly shift the landscape itself. The dilemma is profound, a conflict between two noble goals: the right of the public to experience these wonders and the absolute necessity to protect them for the future. Fences, walkways, and timed ticketing are not mere inconveniences. They are essential tools of modern stewardship, attempts to manage the immense human magnetism of these places. Yet every barrier erected for preservation also creates a degree of separation, placing the stones behind a veil, transforming an immersive landscape into a viewed exhibit. This tension forces a difficult question: what exactly are we trying to save? Is it only the physical stones, the tangible geology? Or is it the full, experiential context, the uninterrupted to the horizon, the quiet, and the sense of sacred space that made the alignments spiritually potent? When concrete paths and visitor centers reshape the immediate environment, we risk preserving the artifact while losing the stage upon which its celestial drama was performed. A reconstructed stone, set in concrete for stability, no longer rests in its original, carefully prepared socket, a subtle shift that can alter its precise angle and thus its intended line of sight. Responsible stewardship, therefore, must be a holistic science. It requires managing footfall to protect the earth, but also preserving the visual corridors to distant hills and the acoustic qualities of the space. It means using non-invasive technology, like ground-penetrating radar, to map subsoil features without a single destructive dig. The goal is a fragile balance, ensuring these sites are not loved to death, so they may continue to whisper their secrets to researchers yet unborn, who will wield tools we cannot yet envision to listen. That profound sense of awe is not a modern tourist reaction, but the very essence of the circle's original power. To stand within those stones on the solstice dawn is to feel a visceral shift in perspective, a sudden, humbling awareness of your own smallness within a vast and orderly machine. For the ancient mind, this connection to the cosmic cycles was not a philosophical abstraction. It was a psychological anchor of immense strength. Their world was one of tangible uncertainty, where a failed harvest or a harsh winter meant true hardship. In the face of that unpredictability, the heavens offered a profound counterpoint, a realm of absolute, unwavering regularity. The sun always returned from its southern journey, the moon always waxed and waned, the stars wheeled on their fixed schedule. By monumentalizing this predictability in stone, they built a fortress against chaos. The circle was a physical proof, a permanent contract signed with the universe, stating that order existed and could be relied upon. This knowledge provided a deep, psychological comfort, a sense of belonging within a grand, intelligible design. It transformed the terror of a capricious world into the security of participating in a sacred, repeating story. Your brief human was not an isolated flicker, but a note in a symphony that played for eternity. This need for meaning, for a place within a larger narrative, is a thread that connects their world directly to ours. While we may not fear the failure of the sun to return, we still seek patterns, stories, and structures that make our own complex world feel coherent and purposeful. The stone rings speak to this timeless human yearning. They tell us that our ancestors looked up, saw the clockwork of the cosmos, and chose not just to tell time, but to build a home for its meaning, finding solace in the stars' silent, steadfast promise. High on a sun-baked cliff in Canyon, a spiral carved into the rock awaits its annual moment of communion. This is the sun dagger of Butte, a celestial clockwork of breathtaking simplicity and profound fragility. Three massive stone slabs, wedged by time against the cliff face, act as a precise aperture. At solar noon on the summer solstice, a sharp blade of light slices perfectly down through the center of the carved spiral. On the winter solstice, twin daggers of light bracketed on either side. This was not a grand circle of monoliths, but a no less brilliant feat of horizon astronomy, where the architects used the natural architecture of the canyon itself. The ancestral people who engineered this alignment transformed a rock face into a calibrated calendar, marking the sun's highest and lowest points with a clarity that needed no words, only light and shadow. It stands as one of the most elegant and undeniable examples of intentional solar alignment ever discovered in the Americas. Yet this very site also delivers one of the most sobering modern lessons about the impermanence of such precision. For the alignment that held steady for centuries began to fail within our own lifetimes. In the 1990s, researchers and visitors noticed something was wrong. The perfect solar dagger had fractured. The clean, bisecting beam of light now appeared as a fragmented, diffuse smudge, and its timing was off. The cause was traced not to the sky, but to the earth. One of the three critical stone slabs had shifted, slipping just a fraction of an inch from its ancient position. This tiny geological movement was enough to shatter the optical precision of a 1,000-year-old instrument. What we witnessed at Butte was a powerful, accelerated metaphor. The natural slippage of a stone over decades mirrors, in fast motion, the grand, slow slippage of the sky over due to axial precession. Both processes reveal the same underlying truth. These alignments are dialogues between a moving cosmos and a supposedly stable Earth. They depend on an assumption of permanence, that the stones will not move and the celestial targets will not drift. Butte shows us that both assumptions can fail. The monument taught two separate lessons, one to its builders about the reliability of the sun, and another, much later lesson to us about the instability of stone. It provides a tangible, observable case study in entropy, demonstrating that these precise intersections of light and geometry exist in a delicate balance, vulnerable to the slightest change in either partner. This modern shift forces a humbling perspective. It reminds us that, when we study the great stone circles of Europe, gazing at alignments now broken by precession, we are looking at a process that unfolded over eons. At Butte, we saw a similar process play out in a mere generation, a poignant reminder that the preservation of these cosmic conversations is as fragile as the placement of a single stone. A spiral carved in stone is a silent symbol, but it required a living voice to explain its meaning. The true longevity of these celestial calendars depended not just on the stability of granite, but on the fidelity of memory across countless human lifetimes. Building and using these precise instruments was a cross-generational project of staggering ambition, one that demanded the flawless transmission of complex knowledge in a world without written manuals or digital records. The positions of key stars, the subtle limits of the sun's annual journey, the geometric principles for laying out a perfect circle, all of this had to be passed from master to apprentice with near-perfect accuracy. This was likely achieved through a deeply embedded cultural system. A young learner would not simply be told the facts, they would be immersed in them through rigorous apprenticeship. They would spend years as an observer, perhaps holding the sighting stakes on cold solstice mornings, their bodies learning the rhythms through ritual repetition. The knowledge was woven into the fabric of life itself, encoded in the cadence of chants, the steps of ceremonial dances, and the epic stories told around the fire. A myth about a hero chasing the sun might secretly encode the solar declination for the winter solstice. A song about the moon's lover could preserve the timing of the major lunar standstill cycle. These narratives were not mere entertainment. They were sophisticated mnemonic devices, turning abstract astronomical data into memorable, emotionally resonant stories that could survive for centuries. The monument itself served as the ultimate, unchangeable reference book. If the oral tradition ever faltered, if a detail in the story grew fuzzy, a priest could return to the stones on the appointed day and witness the truth written in light and shadow. The circle was the external hard drive, the permanent backup for a society's most vital software. The sheer fact that these alignments functioned precisely for generations, long enough for us to detect their slow drift today, is a powerful testament. It speaks to the immense cultural importance placed on this celestial knowledge and reveals a social and educational sophistication we are only beginning to appreciate. Their legacy is a lesson in the endurance of ideas, proving that human beings can cooperate across the abyss of time, building a bridge of understanding from the past, stone by patient stone, story by careful story. The stones have always inspired stories that reach beyond the measured arc of the sun. In the modern era, some of the most persistent narratives woven around these ancient sites involve lines, mysterious earth energies, and even visitors from other worlds. These are the alternative theories, ideas that capture the public imagination with a powerful allure of hidden connections and lost secrets. They represent a different kind of alignment, one not with the stars above, but with a web of invisible forces believed to crisscross the planet. The concept of lines, popularized in the early 20th century, suggests that ancient sacred sites, from stone circles to medieval churches, were deliberately placed along straight, energetic pathways across the landscape. Proponents see these lines as channels of a subtle earth energy or as ancient travel routes for spiritual pilgrims. While this idea paints a captivating picture of a globally coordinated, mystical geography, it faces significant challenges from rigorous study. When researchers plot these sites on accurate maps, the straight lines often dissolve, a result of selective linking of points across a map already dense with ancient monuments. The pattern, in essence, emerges more from our desire to see connection than from demonstrable prehistoric intent. There is no archaeological evidence, like excavated pathways or artifacts, to support the construction of such a continent-spanning network. Yet, the enduring appeal of the line theory is deeply revealing. It speaks to a profound human longing, the same impulse that likely drove the original builders, a desire to see the landscape as meaningful, interconnected, and alive, with a purpose beyond the mundane. It reflects our discomfort with randomness and our innate drive to find a grand, unifying pattern in the scattered relics of the past. The stones, in their silent grandeur, seem to beg for a story equally grand, and lines provide one that resonates with a modern spiritual sensibility. Similarly, theories about the stones marking points of concentrated telluric energy, or acting as amplifiers for spiritual forces, belong more to the realm of contemporary metaphysical belief than to archaeological science. These ideas often project modern concepts of energy and vibration onto cultures that would have understood the world in completely different terms. They replace the celestial machinery of sun and moon with an invisible terrestrial one. While geologists confirm that the ground beneath us holds magnetic and seismic activity, no instrument has ever detected a unique energy field at a stone circle that differs from its surrounding landscape. What these theories do successfully detect, however, is our own sense of awe. Standing in a stone circle can feel electrically charged, a place where the veil between worlds feels thin. That powerful, emotional experience is real, and it seeks an explanation. For many, attributing that feeling to an earth energy feels more satisfying than attributing it to psychology, architecture, and the sublime effect of monumental scale under an open sky. Then there is the most dramatic alternative narrative, the idea that these monuments were built by or with the help of extraterrestrial beings. This theory, popularized in the mid-20th century, often hinges on a single, flawed premise that ancient humans were incapable of the engineering and astronomical feats these sites represent. It is a theory born from a modern arrogance, a failure of imagination that cannot conceive of prehistoric societies possessing sophisticated knowledge, patient observation, and extraordinary communal will. To credit aliens with Stonehenge is to discredit the thousands of ancestors who dedicated their lives to its creation. It ignores the clear, incremental evidence of human engineering. From the stone quarries and tool workshops, we have found to the experimental archaeology that has successfully moved and raised megaliths using Neolithic technology. The astronomical alignments, while precise, are based on cycles observable to anyone who watches the horizon for a lifetime. The extraterrestrial hypothesis often arises not from evidence, but from a cultural gap, our own distance from a world where the greatest communal effort was a spiritual and scientific endeavor, not a commercial or military one. Engaging with these alternative theories respectfully is not about endorsement, but about understanding. They are important cultural artifacts in their own right, revealing more about our own time and its anxieties than about the Neolithic mind. They show our struggle to relate to a deep past that operated on different principles, and our persistent hope that the world holds mysteries just beyond the edge of science. By examining them, we can better appreciate the solid ground of the historically supported explanation, the astronomical one. That explanation does not diminish wonder, it redirects it. The true marvel is not that aliens might have built these rings, but that human beings did. The profound connection is not to a hidden grid of Earth energy, but to the open, predictable, and magnificent clockwork of the cosmos, which they learned to track with nothing but stone, sky, and generations of unwavering attention. Their perfect celestial clock was always destined to lose time. This is the humbling, unifying principle at the heart of every shifted stone, every empty. The ancient builders calibrated their monuments to an order they believed was eternal, a divine machinery that repeated with flawless, predictable rhythm. They trusted the sky as a constant. And yet the sky itself is in motion. Their North Star has drifted into obscurity. Their solstice sunrise has crept along the horizon, leaving its stone frame behind. The very cosmic order they sought to monumentalize has proven to be transient on the grandest of scales. The rings, therefore, are more than calendars or temples. They are eternal witnesses to change itself. They stand as a physical record of a single, profound truth, that our perspective on the universe is always anchored to a moment in an endless flow. The builders captured a snapshot of the heavens, a configuration of stars and solar paths specific to their epoch, and they built that snapshot into the Earth. We are now looking at a photograph of a sky that no longer exists. This connects their world to ours in a deeply meaningful way. We, too, create our models of the cosmos, our maps of physics and time. We trust them, we build our technologies upon them, and we often speak of universal constants. Yet the lesson of the stones whispers to us across the. It suggests that our own scientific understanding, no matter how precise, is also a snapshot. It is the best map we can draw of a territory that is itself slowly evolving. The precession of the equinoxes is just one cycle among many, a single gear in a cosmic clockwork of unimaginable complexity, involving the gradual slowing of Earth's rotation, the subtle dance of our galaxy, and forces we have yet to fully comprehend. The monuments teach us to hold our knowledge with both confidence and humility. They remind us that we, like our ancestors, are observers situated within deep time, interpreting a universe that reveals its secrets layer by layer, era by era. Our pole star, Polaris, will one day relinquish its title to Vega. Our solstice points will continue their slow migration. And perhaps, from now, someone will study the relics of our own age, our satellites and observatories, and marvel at how our science was perfectly calibrated for a sky that had long since moved on. Laser light is now our most powerful tool for seeing what the Earth has kept secret. From aircraft flying high above, LiDAR scanners fire millions of rapid laser pulses toward the ground. Where light penetrates forest canopy or scrub, it bounces back, building a three-dimensional map of the terrain stripped bare of vegetation. This technology is revolutionizing our view of sacred landscapes. What appears as a simple, isolated stone circle from the ground may be revealed from above as just one node in a vast, interconnected network of processional avenues, burial mounds, and previously unknown earthworks, all hidden for centuries beneath a blanket of trees. Each newly discovered feature is a potential a fresh clue in the celestial puzzle. Beyond mapping the landscape, science can now interrogate the stones themselves. Isotopic analysis involves taking a tiny sample from a megalith and measuring the unique chemical fingerprint of its elements. This signature can be matched to geological sources, tracing the epic journey of a stone across dozens of miles. When we learn exactly where a stone originated, we begin to understand the cultural and economic landscape of its builders, revealing which regions were connected and how far people were willing to travel for the perfect material for their cosmic vision. These tools are not just adding dots to a map, they are completely redrawing it. The dramatic discovery of a massive, previously unknown superhenge near walls, found using ground-penetrating radar, is a perfect example. This monument, consisting of scores of deep pits that once held towering timber posts, lay undetected for just a short walk from Stonehenge. Its scale and alignment suggest it played a crucial, complementary role in the solstice rituals, a wooden counterpart to the stone circle. Finds like this shatter the idea of isolated monuments, forcing us to see these places as dynamic, evolving complexes where ceremony and astronomy unfolded across an entire ritual province. The future of archaeoastronomy lies in this integrated vision. It will move beyond the famous, well-studied circles to examine thousands of lesser-known, standing stones, cairns, and rock art sites. The research will weave together threads from many disciplines: the precise measurements of the astronomer, the careful excavation of the archaeologist, the cultural insights of the anthropologist, and the modeling power of digital humanities. By combining these perspectives, we can stop asking if a site has an alignment and start understanding how that alignment functioned within the full spectrum of a community's life, its myths, its economy, and its relationship with the land and the ancestors. The next chapter of this ancient story is not buried in the past. It is being composed in laboratories and computer models today, promising to reveal with ever greater clarity how deeply our ancestors listened to the music of the spheres. The solstice dawn at Stonehenge is no longer a secret kept by priests. It is a shared human moment, witnessed by thousands who gather in the cold dark, waiting for a light that has traveled for. Why do they come? The answer lies not in the stones alone, but in the space between them, in the collective, breath-held silence that falls just before the first sliver of sun breaks the horizon. This modern pilgrimage is a profound echo of the ancient one. It is a drive, as timeless as the alignment itself, for a direct, unmediated experience of a cosmic cycle. We no longer need the stones to tell us the date of the solstice. Our phones do that instantly. What we seek is something older, a feeling of participation. To stand on that ground, to feel the chill of the morning and watch that same celestial event, even from a shifted perspective, is to perform a kind of time travel. It is an attempt to physically and emotionally align ourselves, however briefly, with the minds that conceived this place. We are not just observing history, we are momentarily inhabiting a question they asked, sharing in a wonder they felt. This transforms the monument from a distant archaeological fact into a living threshold. The abstract concept of precession, the slow drift of the sky, ceases to be a dry astronomical fact. It becomes a palpable reality when you stand there, knowing the sun will rise not over the heel stone's tip, but just beside it. You are witnessing the evidence of time's passage written in light, and you are part of the continuum that observes it. This personal connection is what makes these places perpetually relevant. They are not relics locked in the past, they are mirrors. They reflect our own enduring need to find meaning in the vastness above us, to mark our brief lives against a backdrop of cosmic permanence. The pilgrimage challenges us in a quiet but powerful way. It asks us to look beyond the stones to our own era. What are the monuments we are building today? Not necessarily of stone and earth, but of ideas, of science, of culture. What structures are we creating that encode our understanding of the universe? Our particle colliders, our space telescopes, our deep space probes, these are our generation's great alignments. They are our attempt to calibrate our knowledge to the deepest workings of reality. They speak of a relationship with the cosmos that is active, probing, and expansive. But will they speak to someone 5,000 years from now? Will the ruins of a radio telescope on a remote plain whisper a clear, intelligible story about our awe, our curiosity, and our place in the stars? The silent rings remind us that the most enduring messages are those that marry profound insight to a simple, human scale. They combined precise astronomy with a ceremony you could feel in your bones. They connected the infinite to the intimate. As we walk their sacred grounds today, we are completing a circle they began. We are the future they imagined, gazing back at their ambition, feeling the chill of the same dawn, and wondering, in turn, what fragments of our own striving will endure to spark wonder in a sky we cannot yet foresee. The scattered pieces of this puzzle now lock together into a single, breathtaking image. We began with silent stones pointing at an empty sky, a mystery of broken alignments. We traced the cause to a wobbling planet and a wandering celestial sphere. We saw the stones as calendars, as ritual theaters, and as anchors for a society's very rhythm. When all these threads are woven together, they form a coherent narrative far more compelling than any tale of lost gods or alien engineers. These rings were the masterwork of highly organized, intelligent societies. Their builders were not primitive mystics blindly worshipping the sun. They were the scientists and engineers of their age. They possessed a deep, patient understanding of celestial mechanics, gained through generations of meticulous observation. They used that knowledge not for abstract curiosity, but to solve the most fundamental human problems: how to mark time, how to ensure survival, and how to find meaning within the vastness of the cosmos. Their solution was to build a stable, long-term interface between their world and the heavens. The monument was that interface, a permanent instrument designed to synchronize human life with cosmic law. This is the holistic picture of megalithic achievement that emerges from the evidence. It recognizes the full scope of their ambition, honoring both the technical precision of the alignment and the profound symbolic power of the circle. They married empirical skywatching with a sacred worldview, creating structures that served as both observatory and cathedral, practical tool and spiritual home. Within this coherent narrative, the very thing that first puzzled us, the shifted alignment, transforms in meaning. It is no longer a flaw in their design, not a sign of forgotten purpose or failed knowledge. It becomes a diagnostic feature, a built-in timestamp. The degree of misalignment is a direct measure of the centuries that have passed since the builders calibrated their instrument. It is the proof of their foresight and the scale of their legacy. They built for permanence, using the most durable material they knew to capture a moment in a cycle that outlasts civilizations. The fact that we can stand there today, measure the offset, and calculate the age of their intent is the ultimate validation of their success. They created a message in a bottle, sealed not with cork, but with granite, and addressed to a future they knew would come, even if they could not imagine its shape. The message was not written in words, but in geometry and light. It says, "We were here. We watched the sky, we understood its patterns, and we built this so you would know." The story of these rings is a testament to human ingenuity meeting a shifting cosmos. From the first principle of celestial alignment to the humbling reality of a sky that will not stay still, we have traced a profound narrative written in stone and light. These silent circles teach us that our ancestors were not merely builders, but profound astronomers and engineers. They reveal that the sky itself is a moving target. its grand cycles operating on a timescale that stretches our imagination. And most importantly, they remind us that the deep desire to find our place within the universe, to mark our brief moment against the backdrop of eternity, is a timeless human endeavor. Let the final image linger, a solstice sunbeam that now falls on bare earth where it once illuminated a sacred altar. That shifted light is not a symbol of failure, but a quiet, powerful measure of time itself. It invites us to look up and ponder the long now of cosmic time, to consider what monuments we are building today, and what stories they will tell when our own slice of the sky has drifted into memory. If this journey through lost skies and ancient observatories has captivated you, share your own thoughts and reflections in the comments below. And subscribe to continue this journey deeper into history's greatest mysteries with us.